Do you consider yourself to have signs and symptoms of ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? Whether formally diagnosed or not, and whether openly discussed or not, people just tend to know if they have issues with attention and impulsivity and hyperactivity. In the 1980s, in the United States, 1 in 20 children were diagnosed with ADHD, and that number has since risen pretty sharply. Today, it's 1 in 9 children in the United States are diagnosed with the condition. And one reason is we're just better at recognizing the symptoms and giving a correct diagnosis. But another reason is that a greater percentage of people are having trouble with focus and hyperactivity. So let's talk about this further today and why this condition seems to be affecting greater numbers of individuals with each passing year. What's this about? I'm Jennifer Whitaker, trauma specialist. If you're new to the community, welcome. If you're returning and watching a repeat video, welcome back. I appreciate you and it's great to have you here. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And I'd love to have you comment below and let me know what you think, especially if anything resonates with you today. Tuning out, numbing, and dissociation are unconscious defense mechanisms. And according to Healthline, dissociation, or a disconnect from reality, may shield you from distress and traumatic experiences. But this defense mechanism can affect your emotional health over time. So what helps you survive in one situation can become harmful in another situation down the road. According to the American Psychiatric Association, dissociation involves problems with memory, identity, emotion, perception, behavior, and one's sense of self. Symptoms of dissociation might include numbing or having a high tolerance for pain, feeling isolated and disconnected from the world around you, having memory gaps in around certain time periods or around certain events, feeling detached from yourself, your identity, and your emotions, or noticing emotional fluctuations, sudden mood swings, or distinct shifts in identity. It's a misconception to think that a person struggling with symptoms of ADHD must be flawed, weak-minded, lazy, or unintelligent, because this simply is not true. I'd like to offer an alternate point of view to that false assumption, which is the symptoms of ADHD are normal physiological responses to abnormal situations in our environment. The traditional medical model has erroneously pathologized a natural physiological response by labeling it a disorder, when it's not a disorder at all. This is the equivalent to labeling symptoms of the flu, such as fever, vomiting, and diarrhea, as pathological disorders, when in fact, they're symptoms of an active immune response in the body. Now, because these are normal and natural physiological symptoms, it doesn't mean we shouldn't treat them or we should just ignore them, but we should be treating them differently than how we are now. I've learned a great deal about ADHD from an expert on the subject and one of my teachers, Dr. Gabor Mate. He's the founder of the compassionate inquiry approach, which is one of the modalities in which I'm trained. Dr. Mate does not believe that ADHD is genetic, nor does he believe it's a disease. And I agree with him. A person doesn't inherit ADHD. However, a person might inherit sensitivity, making it more likely that under highly stressful or overwhelming circumstances, especially in childhood, and especially in early childhood while the brain is still developing, because these highly stressful and overwhelming circumstances in early life can cause an infant or a toddler or a young child to tune out, numb, and dissociate. The brain is an organ that develops physiologically under the impact of the emotional environment. An article in New America titled "The Interaction of Biology and Environment" states, during early brain development, new neurons and synapses form and differentiate into specialized cells and brain regions that perform specific functions, laying the foundation for cognitive and social and emotional development. The developing brain is easily molded, making it highly responsive to experience and stimulation. Enriching environments will support healthy brain development, but exposure to stress and adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, can result in changes in the brain that can impact behavior and the capacity for learning. In other words, the more sensitive a person is, combined with the levels of stress in their environment, is what determines that individual's need to escape from that stress by tuning out or dissociating. In the mid-1990s, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study focused on how highly stressful or traumatic childhood experiences affect health outcomes in adulthood. The ACE study found a direct link between childhood trauma and the adult onset of chronic disease, incarceration, and employment challenges. And that's only to name a few. According to Dr. Mate, the stressors experienced by the parents translate into physiological stress on the children. Those stressors might be social, political, economic, climate, or financial, and they impact a person's emotional state and ability to stay emotionally regulated. Children will tune out because it's too much to be present when they're overwhelmed by stressors that they don't understand, and in all likelihood, their parents don't fully understand either. In other words, kids who dissociate, numb, or tune out didn't inherit anything. They're simply reacting to their environment. A study of 65,000 children revealed that parents who had higher numbers of adverse experiences themselves had a greater chance of their children being diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm going to say that one more time. A study of 65,000 children revealed that parents who had high numbers of adverse experiences themselves had a greater chance of their children being diagnosed with ADHD. So yes, your parents' trauma can impact you, and it happens through stress. The study also revealed that boys are more sensitive to environmental pressures than girls, concluding that boys are more likely to be affected by these factors. Boys are more sensitive and more susceptible precisely because they're conditioned to suppress their emotions in most modern cultures. Considering this information, perhaps it's time that we collectively and as a society start to rethink how we treat our children while they're growing up. Regardless of sex or gender, the brain develops physiologically under the emotional environment. It would behoove society to normalize boys experiencing and expressing emotions beyond just anger and aggression and the day-to-day happiness, to include vulnerabilities and a wider array of emotions such as grief and compassion and fear and kindness and sadness. It would also benefit society to stop labeling and shaming girls as weak, sensitive, bossy, whiny, or needy because they are, in general, more in touch with their emotions. The reason why this is important is because someday those boys and girls will grow up and many of them will have children of their own. And when parents don't work on their own stressors, they pass them on to their children, which is how we ended up with ADD in the first place. However, when parents get help and they change, their kids also change rather quickly, because that's how the implicit mind works and how implicit learning works. It's important to mention prescription medications here because they can be helpful in the short term. They can suppress symptoms for short periods of time, but they become less impactful with long-term usage due to tolerance. Over time, it takes higher doses to achieve the same effect. Tolerance issues are one reason why children take ADHD medication breaks on weekends and, during longer breaks from school, like summer breaks or Christmas break, for example. And to further shift the current model, it's important to remember that pills don't teach skills. It's extremely beneficial to learn interoceptive skills and techniques for self-regulation. Don't rely solely on prescription medications to fix the problem for you, because it won't. Put forth the effort to make changes in your environment that support healthy brain development in children. And if you're an adult struggling with ADHD, make changes in your environment that support healthy brain functioning. These changes might include looking more closely at tweaking your diet and nutrition, your sleep hygiene habits, your exercise habits. And side note here, exercise and especially cardio is really helpful for ADHD. You might need to tweak how well you stay mentally active, the toxins that you're exposed to in your environment, and the quality of your social networks, because these all impact how severe or not the signs and symptoms of ADHD present. So I hope this helps you better understand ADHD. And for those of us who struggle with the condition, because I do, it can be life-changing to realize we have more agency than we've been led to believe in managing our symptoms. Start small. With one small change, little bite-sized chunk, get that fully incorporated into your habits before changing anything else. And this is important in preventing the overwhelm and procrastination that can hijack your success. Make small changes, stack your habits to prevent further overwhelm and tuning out while you're creating healthier habits for yourself. And if you have supportive people in your life, reach out to them for assistance, because they will support you if you ask them. I hope you have found this to be helpful. Happy self-discovery, everyone. And if this resonated, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.